What's ripening YouTube? So out here this week we're on a plant project doing some hurricane recovery work. This is actually a project that I designed about 6 years ago, and it was a little unique. We had some existing plantings that we had to kind of work into a new design, and there were some other things that were kind of a little awkward we had to work around, but came up with a pretty interesting design. This is before I found out about syntropic agroforestry. This is more of a mixed food forest style, and this was back when I was working with another edible landscaper. So after the initial project, the phase 1 install that I was involved with, there was actually another phase 2, which is this piece over here, which was part of the original design that was put in about 2 years later. And the client called me up and said that she was having some issues. First of all, they had some hurricane damage, trees were down, but also some of the trees weren't growing very well. And we were kind of anticipating that. One of the reasons we thought that was going to happen was because during the initial planting, this place completely flooded. They had like ridiculous rain, complete flooded. And so we knew we were going to be dealing with wet feet here. And we tried to modify the species list to account for that, but there's always this desire to have this epic diversity, so we end up kind of pushing into some things that were a little bit out of place. And even on the second phase, actually they did that even more so. They put in quite a bit of avocados and things that I probably wouldn't have recommended for here. But when they called us back in, she said that things weren't growing well, and she was kind of right in some ways. Actually, some of the things are growing amazingly well. Check out this mango tree. Mango tree, wax jambu, the sapodillas are completely loaded with fruit. Tamarinds did really well. And if you know about these plants, you'll understand why. These are the ones that are, check out the sapodilla. These are the ones that are the most adapted to having seasonal wet. They can take some tougher conditions, and they're showing that here. But what we decided to do, we had a consultation several weeks ago with the client. I said, well, let's take a look at your soil and your water. This project was so long ago that we didn't have, we weren't doing the soil testing and the water testing back then. And we also ended up using importing fill material to create these berms. I don't know if you can tell, this one hasn't been redressed, but the berms are actually built up a little bit to try to counteract that high water table issue that we had. So we didn't know what that soil really was. So what we decided to do, there goes Q on the tractor. And we got Jacob over here spreading the mulch for us. What we decided to do was have the soil tested. We got the results back. And it turns out that the pH was too high, which we expected. And the well water is also high pH and also a bit salty. And so that is most likely the culprit for poor growth for certain species. Obviously, there's different sensitivities and different proclivities for each species, and that's what was showing up. So what we're doing here, this project was a 4-day project. I think we're going to have another 1 or 2 day of planting now that we have an inventory of what we need. But the first thing we did was prop up the trees, prune them, and then we put out amendments based on the soil sample, or the soil testing. The soil testing, having a high pH, called for an application of sulfur. We used Tiger 90 sulfur, which is a 90-day slow release. It's OMRI rated. We also applied gypsum here to help with the salt and to help add some calcium. And then we did a general organic fertilizer and a micronutrient application. In this case, what we did was spread azomite as a granular, and we had the fertilizer as a nature-safe fertilizer. And then we also did a foliar application of micronutrients with boron. We added boron to that. And what we're trying to do is kind of get everything going back up again. We put those amendments down first, and then we reapplied mulch. And so that's the part we're on now, is this mulch reapplication. In this particular case, because a lot of the trees were leaned over and rocked out of the ground almost, a lot of them, their root balls were exposed, and there's voids of air that are underneath the roots. And so we also brought in a little bit of composted, kind of sandy compost to help kind of poke in and kind of recover those roots before we did the mulching. Got the mulching done, and then what you'll see, I don't know if you can see it in the video, you see I'm still trying to use my hot dog bun style. So it's a little weird in some areas because the beds aren't all completely linear, but we are still trying to apply that methodology. And what you'll see is that hot dog bun mulching style. The next step is to go in and put seeds down that midline to help fill that space. And then we're also going to add, in this case, we're going to use Tithonia cuttings along the edges of the beds for biomass production and for wind and frost protection. Obviously, we're kind of out of that season now, but we are coming into a windy season. So we're going to add that biomass back in, the Tithonia. It was originally planted pretty sparsely. I think we need significantly more of it. And then the last step is to add back in, there's a few fruit trees that were either killed by the storm or died because of the poor conditions of the soil, meaning the pH and the salinity. So that's what we're doing right now. Once this is done, we're gonna come back probably at about 90 days. Like I said, that's a Tiger 90, it's a 90-day release. We're gonna come back in about 90 days and see what the changes are, how the leaves look, and whether that pH adjustment is benefiting the plants enough, or if we think we need to do another application. Ideally, we kind of get things bumped up and then we don't have to do so much. So, that's going to be something that we monitor here. But the challenge is that we have such a mix of species that, it's like joining a club, like, is everybody always happy in an agreement in a club or in a family or, in any group? It's like that here. You've got all the plants have all different needs and all different wants and different seasons and different things that they're good at. And, that's kind of like a community of people. Community of plants is a similar way. So that's what we're at here. We're going to finish up the mulching now. And then next week we'll come back and plant in the gaps. And hope you got something out of that. And we'll see you next time.